Are they going to be a division champ and host a playoff game?
Well, they're in first place right now in the NFC West. They've played 2 divisional games. They've won them both. They haven't played the Cardinals yet. They play the Rams in 2 weeks. So, and it's not just, and you said this to me before we started the show today, it's not just that the Rams lost. It's right now the Rams offense is, now they did play the Niners defense and the Cowboys defense, right? They played Nick Bosa and Micah Parsons back-to-back weeks, but they don't look great right now. They've lost back-to-back weeks despite the fact that they're, you know, that I want to call him Cooper Rush. Cooper Kupp has balled. I don't know how many kicks do you have against the Niners? I think he had 12 today. He was over 100 yards.
He's dominating.
The Cardinals, I was lucky enough to be on video with Middlekoff during that missed kick. It broke his heart to see the Cardinals miss that kick for OT.
I threw a pen earlier when Cade York, hopefully Jed's cousin, the Browns kicker, when he missed the kick to beat the Chargers after Brandon Staley goes for it at the 50-yard line.
Yeah.
So there's 2 teams that I openly like. I get joy in watching them lose, the Cardinals and the Chargers.
The overall standings right now in the NFC, Philly's 5-0, Minnesota's 4-1, Tampa's 3-2, Niners are 3-2, Dallas is 4-1, the Giants, who beat the Packers in London this morning, 4-1, and the Packers are 3-2. The Rams right now at 2-3 are not in the playoff picture. You know, the Niners were just in that spot, and neither are the Cardinals, who are also 2-3 right now.
What is the Rams record?
2-3.
You know that you know who plays Sunday Night Football this upcoming week?
Rams.
No.
Broncos?
Cowboys at Philly.
Oh, wow.
Eagles early line like -5.5. So Eagles pretty big favorite.
So Eagles could be 6-0. Cowboys could be 5-1 with a win, 4-2 with a loss.
So we got some big games this week: Buffalo, Kansas City, Dallas, Philly.
Who did the Giants play? Do you have the schedule in front of you?
Yeah, the Giants
play the Ravens,
who are about to play right now.
Yeah. So my thought being, if they win, unlikely, but
I'm going to take the Ravens in that spot, I think.
Yeah, I guess they probably won't be in first place in the NFC East.
Sneaky, decent game. I mean, Minnesota at Miami. The hard part is is Miami playing this undrafted free agent at quarterback?
Yeah, yeah. So, I mean, it's now, again, then you got to keep winning to make this stuff matter. But it's pretty incredible considering who would have guessed if the Niners had if you said before the season the Niners will lose to the Bears and the Broncos, but they'll be in first place after 5 weeks of the season. I would not have thought that would be the case.
Yeah, I would have had a hard time seeing the Rams be 2-3. You could have convinced me 3-2. Maybe they're tied at 3-2 and they beat the Rams. Like, that's the kicker. But I couldn't have seen the Rams being 2-3. And I think here's the thing with the Rams. We talked about it last week. They are so dependent, like you were just talking about, on the one guy. The Niners do have a lot of weapons. So their quarterback can be a roller coaster ride, even though I thought today was the best game he's had in a long time. They have a lot of weapons. I mean, Debo is a stud. Ayuk is excellent. Kittle being back makes a huge difference. And, I mean, at any moment, Juwan Jennings can just break a tackle and go 20, 30 yards, right? Like, even the play today where he catches that out route. Now, I know it's not it's J.C. Horn. It's not J.C. Horn. It was like C.J. Henderson, who was, I think, once a top 10 pick. He kind of easily just gives him that body type, balances out the group pretty well. 15 looks like a fucking monster.
It does.
He had the one sweet play where he like bounces off the guy and he goes. And you're like,
he's a third down machine in particular. Like, he makes plays when it's kind of nut cutting time, right?
He's got a little tight end-ish to him, doesn't he?
For a guy that drops the ball, you trust him a lot. Cooper Kupp the last 2 weeks, John, 21 catches for 247 yards, and they've lost both games.
And the Niners just aren't as dependent on one individual, even Debo, right? Just because Ayuk at any moment can get multiple first downs. Kittle, someone texted me, they're like, God, Kittle fumbles a lot. And then that shows the thing. He's only had 2 lost fumbles. Maybe they've fallen on a lot of fumbles, but 2 lost fumbles in his career.
Yeah, that does seem...
He just takes on about 7 people every play.
I was watching today... I was on a Southwest flight, which gives you live TV during the Packer game. So I was
you get live TV on Southwest?
Yeah, you can stream it to your iPad.
Damn.
And I was watching some of the NFL game, and then the Giant, like, it was kind of not a great game for a period of time. So I switched over and started watching like NFL Countdown. I was flipping around.
You don't have to pay for internet on Southwest?
You have to pay if you want to like do some work, but the TV streaming is free, or movies or whatever, because they don't have headrest, monitors.
I didn't know that.
Yeah. Well, I just sit down, I look over, the guy next to me's watching the football game, and I'm like, oh shit, I can watch the football game.
How'd you do that? You just went to Sunday
Go to
Ticket?
the Southwest website on your iPad and you start streaming.
Wow.
Or your phone or whatever. But one of the things watching
through their streaming?
Yeah.
It's a good nugget. I didn't know that.
Yeah. Live. I mean, you go.
I've flown a lot of Southwest in the last couple of years.
But one thing watching the ESPN show, I think it was Randy Moss, and they, now Randy obviously played for the Vikings, so maybe he's a little bit of a Vikings homer. But his thing was, I think the Vikings are for real because I think Kevin O'Connell's a really good coach. And, we spent some time talking about Mike McDaniel and the Niners losing Mike McDaniel. I'm sure other people, maybe Rams people, have spent time talking about Kevin O'Connell. I don't know. But Kevin O'Connell's team is 4-1, and the Rams right now have scored 19 points in 2 weeks. So does that matter? I don't know. Maybe. I mean, Shanahan has said, and the same would apply to McVay, like the league is different than it used to be for those guys because everybody has seen their stuff or everyone's running their stuff. If you play a Shanahan offense, you also play a McVay, you play a McDaniel, you play a LaFleur, you play a Zach Taylor, you play a Kevin O'Connell. Like, it's just a little harder for those offenses now. And I think their offensive line's not great. There's other things we could point to.
Well, I think one issue, and you saw it today with the Niners. You knew had a fantastic game today, and he's really been awesome since I was like, God, he looks slow. Turned out it was the mud. Jeff Wilson Jr. is a pretty good player.
Yeah.
I mean, he ran his ass off today. He's busted big runs. I mean, he went for over 100 yards. The Niners will run the ball, and they will stick with it. Sean will not. Sean is just, like, to me, the parallels of him and Kyle, you can be like, well, he's got Matt Stafford. I think he's just been inclined. Like, he is much more closer. He's got more Andy Reid in him than Kyle does. And it makes sense, right? If you just, at your core, you're like, well, yeah, these guys originally hired me, but at my core, I'm a wide receiver. I like throwing the ball more. Never forget, Sean's a wide receiver too. One guy idolizes Ed McCaffrey because of his blocking. If you told me, Sean, who's your idol? Or who was your hero? He's like, Jerry Rice, Randy Moss. I don't know. I mean,
Ed's also kind of nuts, Ed's kind of nuts. Like, I think
McCaffrey?
Ed's, McCaffrey
is nuts.
I think Ed's just a little, I've talked to him before I did one of their football games. He's the coach at like North Colorado. Now, why is Ed McCaffrey the coach at North Colorado? Because he fucking loves football. You know what I mean? Like, Ed's just, like, you can't play the way Ed McCaffrey played without being fucking crazy for football.
But do you agree that, like, philosophically, I think their core beliefs?
Yeah, I think you're right.
Probably tend to, like, if you just had to start, you couldn't run the offense that they both, the run game, the zone. You just had to start from scratch. Kyle would be like, start from a running scratch.
Yeah.
Sean
Triple
would start from he would be more inclined to do some run-oriented 1970 something, and Sean would be much more likely to, like, run Mike Leach's offense, I think.
Don't let Kyle find out that there's an offense where you can trust the quarterback even less. It's called
Mike Leach is sneaky killing it, by the way.
Who'd they beat this week? They had a big game. A&M. No,
A&M they beat them last week. They beat Arkansas, killed them. They're guys. Leach's quarterback's killing it.
Mike Leach just wins everywhere he goes. I mean, it's pretty crazy.
He's 155. I looked it up, and 100. And I would imagine the majority of conference games he's had at Tech, at Washington State, and now at Mississippi State. Less than 30% of them, he's had the better teams, like the better recruiting classes and better rosters.
Yeah. I remember there was a stretch in the Pac-12 when he was tied for the second most league wins over like a 5-year stretch. It was like David Shaw and then Chris Peterson and Mike Leach tied. So, or maybe for reverse, it was Shaw and then those two. But anyway, no, I agree. It's part of why the Niners won Week 18 last year because they punted away to the Rams and the Rams couldn't run the football.
Yeah.
And part of it is they've been looking for a running back, but you'd say Kyle just gets running backs and makes them running backs and they run the ball with them, right?
Yeah, I mean, they have one major difference is the Niners are going to miss 2 straight first-round picks. They've missed, years of first-round picks, and then some years even second-round picks. They have had several years where their first draft pick is in the 3rd round. And if you think about the Niners, like Aaron Banks is a starter, Drake Jackson is going to be a starter. Like they have, like the Rams haven't had second round picks. So that trickle down effect is pretty big. And that, like, one big difference, I didn't watch any of the Rams game, but just watching them play, wouldn't you say, like, the Niners are a deeper team than they are? They just have 3 or 4 more impact players than the Rams have.
Well, I thought we talked about this last week. When you watch the Rams, you think, what would they do without Cooper Kupp? And obviously, when you watch Debo, you're like, what would you do without Debo? But there's Ayuk, and when you watch the Rams, like, what would they do without Cooper? I from what I saw that game today, I don't know what the numbers said, but it felt like Matthew Stafford was just getting pelted all day by the Cowboys defense. And for all the questions of the Niners offensive line, it does feel like the Niners kind of avoid, and the run game is part of that. They avoid those games where Jimmy is just getting hammered play after play after play. He got hit in the Broncos game, but
Cooper Rush was 10 of 16 for 100 yards.
Wow. His defense won him that game. I mean, they scored 10 points, John. They scored 9 points against the Niners. They scored 10 points. And by the way, they scored 10 week 1 against the Bills, and they scored 20 against the Cardinals. Like, 20 is not a ton of points.